Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. This is Kelsey here today with Annie Hockey. She's the co-founder and co-CEO at Column. Annie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So Annie, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Well, I am from Seattle originally, but have been a Bay Area person for what feels like a very long time now. I discovered sunshine and what that feels like when I came to the Bay for undergrad and never looked back. But I began my professional journey out of undergrad. I moved up to San Francisco and started working for a startup with what felt like my entire class, and discovered how incredible it is to build and candidly be given a lot more responsibility and autonomy than you might in another industry. So really enjoyed my time there. I decided that I wanted to get a little bit more kind of institutional knowledge of, I'd seen like how things can work when you're thinking about building something in new ways, but I kind of wanted to get a little bit more institutional knowledge in terms of how things historically have worked. So I went back to Stanford to go to business school and then spent a little bit of time at Goldman and then some time at Bain in San Francisco. Afterwards. Again, you sort of see the big companies, right? Like the ones that startups are disrupting and see how they work. But always knew that I wanted to go back to an entrepreneurial journey. And so left Bain a few years ago. At the same time, my co-founder left his job and started working on Column together then.
Love that. So Column, co-founder and co-CEO. So what is Column? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes. So Column is a developer infrastructure bank. And so what that means is that we are the only nationally chartered bank that's been purposely built from the ground up to enable developers and builders to create new financial services and products.
Yeah.
So, it's both a bank, but also the internal technology and core has been built from scratch for our team and has all sorts of benefits that I'm happy to chat about.
Yeah. Tell me more about it.
Yeah. So, we think that kind of a major blocker to innovation is the really legacy rails that the financial industry is built on. Many people don't know, but banks sit on top of a core processor that's connected to the Federal Reserve. And there's really kind of three that all banks use, and they're old and they're clunky, and it's really hard to build something into them directly. So what that means is there's sort of this prolonged supply chain where if you want to build on top of a bank or build kind of a new tool or service, you actually have to use a middleware vendor in order to connect to the bank. And so, I think the easiest way to put it is there's far too many cooks in the kitchen. And if each one of those cooks need to get some margin and, need to have a viable business of their own, there's all sorts of sort of downsides of that. So we really circumvent the middleman and have proprietary technology in-house. And so whether you are another bank who's partnering with us, a fintech, another client, you can integrate directly to us, and it's faster, it's more developer friendly, it's flexible, and better for our customers overall.
Yeah. So talking about your customers, you talked a little bit about fintech. What other industries or verticals do you think that Column best services?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think we think about our customer base less based on the vertical of the customer. In this new world with embedded finance, right? Anyone can be a fintech, quote unquote, company. And so, whether you are a classical fintech like a Chime or say a Brex, or, maybe you have like a trucking platform and you want to have a fuel card. All of those companies could use someone like Column on the back end to really just provide services and tools to their own customers where those customers need them.
Yeah.
So the way we think about segmenting our audience is really built on kind of use case and the tools that they need. our kind of three core segments are just classic retail banking, transaction banking, so commercial services or sort of treasury services for commercial clients, and then partners, right? And I think, though this is perhaps not what sort of the press has indicated, that last bucket is actually not our largest bucket, right? We have a lot of very unglamorous businesses using us for unglamorous things, right, on the back end. But we love those. We love those companies, and we want to power them as well.
Yeah, I love that. So tell me a little bit more about, the services that Column can provide.
Yeah. So we offer all sorts of things. Again, sort of classic retail banking. If you're a consumer and you need to have a bank account or something on our platform, like we are a bank. We have a branch in Chico, California, that you can do that with. But we also, allow companies to store funds, right? So we have deposit sponsorship or programmatic payments. So ACH wires and checks, we can engage those for customers. BIN sponsorship. So if you want to deploy a card, we can power that. And of course, kind of credit origination. So loans, everything as straightforward as, we take in deposits and we loan out to local businesses, to providing loans, on behalf of another partner and their clientele.
Yeah. So with those things in mind and, being able to circumvent the middleman, like you said, what are some other ways that Column is able to stand out from its competition?
Yeah. So competition is sort of an interesting concept in our world, because again, I sort of described that quote unquote long supply chain. And so there is the world of sort of the classic banks that you might have heard of that provide some of these services. So those are banks like Cross River or Evolve, right? There's the middleware providers who are often the ones who allow companies to connect their pipes to those banks. So those are the synapses, right? The units, the bonds, the moves. And then you also have the core processors, FAS, Jack Henry, Fiserv. I think we're competitive with a little piece of each of those. And so I don't think there's necessarily a lot of competitors out there who provide kind of all three. But again, there's a lot of banks who have historically provided a partner model to other companies that have done so in a great way. But again, I think, there, I think, are many benefits to what we're building, but I think the technology piece being in-house and really purposely built for our offering is really the sort of piece to highlight, right? Community banks are incredible, but they weren't necessarily built to provide infrastructure to the others. They were built for other things. So that's where I think we stand out the most.
Yeah, interesting. So talking about those three tenets, growing the company as co-founder and co-CEO, do you think it's those three main tenets that have really, you've been able to scale the company with your other co-founder? Talk to me a little bit about what that growth has looked like.
Yeah, what that growth has looked like. So we're a little bit different from your classic startup model. So at its most core, we're not venture backed, we are bootstrapped. And so that comes with, I think, a different mentality to growth than, historically in a venture backed company, the investor, rightly so, might expect sort of hockey stick growth to have an exponential return on their investment, right? I think both by nature of our funding model, but also by nature of kind of what we're doing, that model of growth doesn't really work for our company. We are a financial institution, and so safety and soundness is core to our ethos and everything that we do. So we are really intentionally growing, and it is our kind of people philosophy that you can do. If you empower your people, you can do a lot with a little. And so basically everyone on our team was hired as a result of targeted outreach. William and I spent a lot of time sending very cryptic emails on LinkedIn. Before we were launched, it was like, hey, I'm building something I can't talk about in a space I can't talk about. Do you want to have a call? Fortunately, a lot of people were willing to give us, 20 minutes
There you
to
go.
make sure that we were talking about something decently credible.
Yeah, right.
But that's how, that's the way we think about growth with
Yeah.
our people. And that's the way that we think about growth with our customers. Because 80/20 doesn't work in this world. If you have a customer, you have to have a really perfect program. And, that's sort of our obligation to them.
Yeah, yeah. So talking about those customers, is there an ideal kind of target customer size or persona? Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like for Column.
Yeah. I think long term, no. We are a company that has kind of deep entrepreneurship empathy, as you can imagine from my co-founder, right? And so I think we want to be stewards of and partners to all sorts of folks, whether you're teeny tiny and you have an idea about a service that maybe belongs in this world, or you're huge and you're Walmart and you want to offer some sort of financial tool to all of your merchants or all of your shoppers.
Yeah.
I think that in this world, supply of customers is not really the constraint. And so we're able to be pretty thoughtful about the customers that we want to work with first.
Yeah.
I think first, one of our priorities was we wanted a customer across all of our programs so we could make sure that our product was viable and working. And so we picked partners who were truly partners in that way and willing to build with us.
Yeah.
And I think now in terms of that continuum, right, from the big guy to the teeny tiny guy, I think we kind of started in the middle.
Yeah.
But we look forward to, continuing in both directions as we grow our team and our capabilities as well.
It sounds like too, so much of the process for you, going back to how you've been able to scale the company as well, is talking about having that solid foundation, and being like having a solid team and also having a solid product in those different offerings as well.
Exactly. I think that the in the startups, at least I worked for before this one, you build while you're flying. And I think the analogy we use with our team is that actually our plane we built it on the ground, if you will.
Yeah.
And then we take off and go on our international journey.
I love that.
And so you're right. I think having that firm foundation before we take on any new clients, before we're able to support Walmart, we want to know that, again, it will be perfect. And so we'll get there. But I think in this case, rushing to market is not beneficial in the way that it might be if you're in a winner takes all environment. That's just not totally our world.
Totally. Yeah. So working to kind of build that brand awareness and educating customers not only about what you can do, but what you are doing. Talk to me a little bit about how you've been able to, like I said, build that brand awareness and build that Column name.
Yeah. So if you think about, I think the sort of first place to start with this question is, who are my customers and where are they? And so for some types of technology, right, you sort of have the growth model where, maybe one of your engineers starts kind of working with a tooling platform and it sort of spreads throughout the organization little by little. And that could maybe allow for a little bit more mass targeting. I think the decision to work with us is a little bit more tops down. And so we took a more intentional approach of targeting kind of well-known, but more niche publications, so that we could sort of get to like the leaders of an organization rather than someone on their team. So I think the initial way that we started to get customers inquiries inbound was through our announcement, which was really fun for the team. We'd been working in stealth mode for 2 years at that point. I was very ready to not have to make candidates sign NDAs before interviews. And so we used that and we partnered with a well-known journalist from the Wall Street Journal to have sort of an exclusive feature on us. And we did that so that we could be, a little bit more sort of careful about our messaging. And from there, I would, if I'd be lying if I said that marketing was a huge focus of ours these days. We have a blog on our website,
Check it out.
yeah, exactly. We rolled up with Force to Money 2020.
Yeah.
But I think we feel really fortunate that for us, the differentiator is execution versus getting more customers. I think there are a lot more companies that are looking for banks to build on top of than banks right now in this environment, and that for now works in our favor.
Yeah, totally. And it's also helpful too, like you said, you built the plane on the ground. So you have that potential, it's a solid product, right?
Exactly. And when we announced, part of our announcement was for us to kind of like test the waters, right? What is the market? What is the TAM? Will people reach out to us? And I think, we were kind of floored by the inquiries that we received. And so I think that gives us a lot of comfort that the market is there and ready kind of when we're able to take more clients on.
That's fantastic. So, Annie, if you were to leave our listeners with either one nugget kind of about Column or about the industry in the space, what would that be?
Oh, that's such a good one nugget about Column. I think that, my sort of thought for the future of the industry is that the person who owns the customer relationship, like historically, we got all of our financial needs met we would go to our department store, essentially. Like when you were 5 and you opened a bank account, your mom would take you to Bank of America. And then when you were getting your student loans, maybe you'd ask them. And then lo and behold, when you start your company, you open your corporate first commercial bank account at Bank of America, right? That's like the Nordstroms of financial tools. We're moving to a world increasingly where, folks are able to provide really individualized, specialized, sort of specific use cases. And I think we saw that obviously in the sort of bubble of fintech in the last few years, but moving forward, I think increasingly folks will get their financial needs met in the platforms that they use, right? Like maybe our kids will create their first bank account with Venmo or PayPal, right? And then you get your student loan, and so that's, I think, where the future exists. And I think that's the benefit of being a platform, right? We're here to support all of them. We don't really play favorites. If they're a good customer, we'll be here, and we're excited to see and help empower, candidly, the creation of more financial tools that belong in the market, right? Because customers, I think, are more demanding these days, and they should be.
Yeah, no, totally. I completely agree with you. Well, Annie, this has been such a great conversation, not only about like Column, but as a platform and, as a developer infrastructure bank. I think this has been great. I loved having you on Business Ninjas. Again, Annie Hockey, she's the co-founder and co-CEO at Column.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.